Alright, so we are now at what is usually the most daunting part of an LS swap for people who haven't done it before, and that is the wiring. Now the wiring you can make as difficult as you want. You could cut down a stock truck harness, more power to you if you do, but the easiest and quickest way to do it is definitely to get a swap harness already made. I recommend PSI conversions. They're really good. It's what we used on Dustin's Cadillac. Or if you don't want to use a factory computer, you can go with a Holley Terminator X. I haven't heard a bad thing about those yet. So once you figure out which way you want to go about it, just cut down your own harness, swap harness, Terminator X. There's even like micro and mega squirt, things like that. Whatever you decide you want to do. Kind of the next step is figuring out where you want to put the ECU. I was going to put this under the dash, but I think what I'm going to do, at least my plan for right now, is I'm going to hide this in the fender here behind the battery. As you can see, there's plenty of harness for it. It'll still be nice and out of the way. All the fuses will be right here, nice and easy to get to where you can see them. The only real downside about this is the OBD2 port is going to be out here because I don't feel like extending these wires. It's only 4 wires, super easy to do, but on this car, I don't really see the point of it. And then a lot of these we actually aren't going to be hooking up anyway, so I didn't really see the point in putting another hole in the firewall. But I may change my mind. I've said many times that I hate wiring that's kind of stupid or rat's nesty, so I very well may change my mind just to keep it all tucked out of the way. But I really think that once it's all done here, it'll be pretty well hidden too, because I'm going to have a couple things here on the firewall, like the radiator overflow and the oil catch can, stuff like that. So I did start plugging things in. I mentioned that in the last video. I plugged in the super basic stuff that you can't really plug in anywhere else. So all the injectors, the coils, all those are plugged in. The map sensor, NOx sensors, oil pressure, things like that. I mean, you should be able to figure those out without me showing you. The main things I'm really going to go over are just like the starter wires, these wires, this one, the things that you actually have to wire up. Now if you do go with the swap harness, it'll come with some instructions that go over some of the wires. And with this one, for these clump of wires right here, it lists out the color, what it does, where you'll connect it. Like for instance, the brown wires for like the check engine light. I don't know if this car actually has a check engine light. It might have some dummy lights like low oil pressure, things like that, but I don't know if it has an actual check engine light, so we're not going to worry about that. A speedometer wire, we're not hooking that up. We got a Turbo 350 transmission. There's a Tach wire that we are going to be using, so I am going to have to pull the dash, well, at least the cluster apart to hook that up. I think it'd be neat to use the factory Tach. It might not work. It might have a different signal or something like that. I don't know. Haven't looked into that just yet. Dark green and dark blue are the fan grounds. Now with the factory ECU, if you want that to control the fans, you will hook power directly to the fans, and then you will use these for the grounds. So I don't know if I can explain that really any better. The computer, to turn the fans on, it grounds them out. It doesn't send power to it, it grounds them. Good. Orange is the clutch position, not neutral safety. We're not worrying about that. Purple, we're not worrying about that because we are not running a lockup converter. Engine coolant temp, we will probably throw a mechanical gauge on this backside here. I don't know if this car has an electric one or a mechanical one, or if this car even actually has one, to be honest. Alright, so we got the fuel gauge, alternator gauge, there's water temp, and clock. So there's no oil pressure gauge. Right there's the Tach, right there's the Speedo. Pretty sure this car came with the Turbo 350, so I'm just going to use like a stock speedometer cable, things like that, keep it all cable driven. And then this, obviously, it's a ground. What I'm going to do with this actually is, because it says a chassis ground, so I'm going to hook this to the same spot that I hook up the battery ground to the chassis, and then from there I'm going to run another ground to the engine. I just like as many grounds as you can possibly get. This one doesn't have the fuel pump wires, so the next one is this red wire, and this needs to be hooked to keyed power that stays 12 volt when cranking. So we had this problem with Dustin's Cadillac because we kept finding wires that were turned on with the key, but when we'd crank it, it would lose 12 volts. It would drop to like 6 or whatever. So if you're swapping into a car that had a distributor, use whatever wire powered that distributor. So in our case, that's this big fatty right here. then the rest of them are stuff we don't care about. AC, car doesn't have AC, cruise control, car no longer has cruise control. So I'm going to start hooking up some of these and at least just getting them in place. I don't know how many I'm gonna actually like crimp or solder right now. But I'm at least gonna get everything in place, and then we'll kind of go over some of the starter wires, which again is really easier than most people make it out to be. Especially if you're doing an older GM car, just use that thick boy purple wire and you'll be good to go, because that's usually the one that's hooked up to the actual ignition in the car. All right, so now that we're under the car, we can see all of the wires that are going to connect to the starter. And here's the one purple wire that I was talking about earlier. This is the one that comes from the stock ignition in the car. This is obviously going to go to the little terminal on the starter here, right there. And then everything else is going to go to the other terminal. So this is where the car gets all the power for all the interior stuff and all the headlights, things like that. And then this is where the conversion harness gets its power from. So both of these are going to connect to that terminal along with the main battery positive. I know that this probably looks like a ground cable. That's because it was, not is, it was. So I'm going to get all these connected to the starter and get that bolted up in there. I would show it, but it's kind of an awkward angle down here, and looks like my light is dying pretty quickly, so let me get that thrown in real quick. Alright, so the starter is hooked up now. I need to make like a little heat shield to keep the wires off the headers, but theoretically if I hook the ground up, it should at least turn over off the key. It's not going to start right now because I don't have like the coil wire, the main ignition power wire hooked up. There's no tune in the ECU at all. So, but we should be able to at least roll it over a little bit. So let's see. It's a mess right now, but this is just for testing. I don't know if I'm going to need another ground to the frame just yet. We'll see. Let's just find out. This is testing. I think I might need another ground to the frame. I'm mostly just... Hey! Look at that! All right. Oh! It cranked! Woo! Let's let it turn over a little bit and build up some oil pressure. Hopefully, yeah, I don't really have a way to prime the oil system right now, so I'm pretty much just gonna have to crank it over and let it build up some pressure. This battery's way dead, but it turned over. That's awesome. Does this thing have an in-tank pump? It shouldn't. It shouldn't. It might. That's weird. No, I think we're good. All right, sweet, 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 sweet. So obviously this battery is junk, which sucks because it's not that old, but it's just been so cold out here and I've left it laying around, it froze. But those are some of the more hard parts of the wiring, or hard parts. But that is just a quick overview of the wiring. The only things that I didn't really show you guys is hooking up this red wire, which I'm not gonna do just yet. But like I said, that would just go to the distributor wire. Hopefully you guys will be able to figure that out on your vehicle. For this one, I need to run these alternator wires all the way over to the alternator. That way, hopefully the factory charging gauge works and all that shit. I'm gonna run another ground. I might move this to the back of the head. That way I'm not just cutting this line down. I don't know, we'll see. And then I could just do another ground wire right to the firewall. And then, I don't know if I mentioned it yet. Hopefully I'm speaking loud enough to cover up Method Man over there. The only wires from this that are actually going into the car are these ones. The white one is the Tach and the gray one is the engine coolant temp. And I'm not sure if I can use that on the factory gauge just yet, but for sure one, maybe two of these would be going into the car. And then the only other two are the two for the fans. So for this, that's all we'd be using for these. The rest I'll tape up and tuck somewhere else. And then I don't know if I showed you guys where I'm putting the ECU for now, but it's tucked up there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that. And then I'll make a bracket to hold it in place. We'll be good to go. So that's pretty much all it takes to wire up your LS swap. Hope it helps. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're getting real close with the Camaro. There's not much left to do. So hope you guys stick around. Watch us do some burnouts in this thing. And I'm going to go inside, heal up. My throat's starting to get pretty sore again. So thanks for watching. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. I'll see you guys next time. Later.